Welcome to MOOC. We are discussing the Indian economy too, and in these sections, we will interact with the review of social security systems in India. I think you have already know that our workforce are divided in organized and unorganized sector in a very biased way, because only 6% of the total workforce are organized labor, and 94% of the laborer are in unorganized sector. And the basic problem regarding the unorganized sector is that government doesn't have adequate information, adequate data regarding their work culture, regarding the geographical spheres, regarding the measures they need for their survival. Basically, they don't have, government don't have adequate data regarding that. So, how those policies are being implemented by the Indian planners, this is our basic intention. Now, if we quickly recapitulate what we have gone through in our previous model, in our previous section, is that what is social security? What kind of assistance we can provide for the people? Basically, the problem is we have to provide the assistance in terms of income or in terms of some basic rights to the laborer, and these we used to provide in terms of social security, that is the basic survival needs for the workforce. If they cannot provide the good health, if the workforce are not possessing adequate basic rights, they cannot be productive enough. So they cannot produce goods and services, and that will affect our gross domestic product. So this is the basic, the legislations made is basically try to intensify the issues regarding how those social security measures are being implemented. And few people who were in the workforce but now they are old, our basic responsibility is to provide some social security to them because they cannot work. So old persons, the family persons of the workforce, we have to provide the security to them. So if we try to focus on the things through which we are implementing the social security measures, we will see later on that it is basically the integral part of the total development process of Indian economy. Now, if we try to focus on quickly how the Indian planners have addressed, we will see that first plans, first plan was focused on self-sustainability of the agricultural sector. The second plan that has been focused on heavy industrialization strategy. So social security issues has not been that much adequately find the attentions of the Indian planners, but since the first plan, we have addressed, this is the basic things, we have addressed the social security measures, the social security, how to provide social security to the laborers. But problem is, from the first plan, we are focusing on only on the organized laborer, that is the white collar laborers. And for workers in the unorganized sector, our basic emphasis was on the promotional measures. That is the basic social security measures like food security, like employment security, and this kind of measures has been adopted. And logic behind provisioning for social assistance to labor force was to enhance the efficiency, productivity of the laborers, so they can contribute more to produce goods and services, and they can be productive enough to focus on the contributing to gross domestic product. But you all know, since 1991, we have shifted to the new economic reforms, and since the reform was initiated, the social security measures that has been adopted previously in different plan models has been shifted also. Post 91 economic reform focused on the viable. Basically, before 1991, what are the Indian planners have focused are on the legislative things. But after 1991, we can able to find out that we need some social security measures which are viable. So viable social security programs has been implemented after 1991, and those measures are basically on the right-based, and right-based scheme was designed, recasting the old measures that has been adopted, and enactment of the comprehensive legislations. This is very important, because if your legislations are not in conforms with the measures, you can't implement it. So the policies was focused on closing the coverage gap. Previously I have said that most of the laborers are from unorganized sectors, and government doesn't have adequate data regarding that, so they cannot cover all of the unorganized laborers in their social security sphere. So this coverage gap has to meet up, which has been focused adequately after 1991. Now, first of all, we are focusing on the social security measures for organized laborers. That is, government have adequate information regarding them, and they can provide different security, social security for them. So it is very easy for the government to find different schemes. Soon after independence, the Employees State Insurance Act has been implemented in 1948. After that, the family pension schemes of 1971 replaced by the Employees Pension Scheme 1995 has been implemented. For the disablement, those policies has already been implemented, and for the funeral or sickness, the State Insurance Act has helped the organized laborer. For maternity, State Maternity Act, Maternity Benefit Act has been implemented, and Central Maternity Act 1961 that has been implemented. And for the old age, the Provident Fund schemes and the Payment of the Gratuity Act 1972 has been implemented. So for the organized labor, there are different kind of schemes. There are different kind of schemes that has been implemented through different kind of act and schemes. And if we try to review those policies of the organized sectors, we will find that public sector employees are much better placed in terms of different social security legislations and acts, and benefits are contrasted as a part of the service condition without involving and they don't have to contribute much for their security in the old age, because throughout the working process they don't have to contribute much of their income, because they can take leave with full pay during sickness. They can insure themselves in the death in harshness or pensions and gratuity. Different kind of schemes are available for the organized labor. So they are much better placed in terms of the social security measures for workers. And the employees in the organized private sectors, those who are licensed with the government, those private sector are covered with the legislatory provision of the social security, with different kind of social security measures has been adopted. But since they are private sectors, all the policies has not been adequately implemented. And this is the basic problem with the private sector. Problem is, they are only 6% of the total workforce. So different act, different kind of legislations made for the organized labor can cover only 6% of the total problem. And if we look to the other side of the coin, we will find a dark and gloomy kind of situations. They are unorganized labor. Government doesn't have adequate information regarding them because their geographical sphere, their working conditions are not known to the government. How can government can cover those laborers into the social security spheres? This is the basic problem, and this is the basic challenges that has to faced that have been faced by the Indian planners while formulating different plans for social security. These unorganized sectors comprises of the 94% of the total workforce, and they are so heterogeneous. They are working on for building the house, for building the roads. They are on the agricultural sectors. They are working on, they are migrating themselves from one state to another. And since they are so heterogeneous, it is very difficult to formulate policies to provide them social security. And for that, government has focused on the dual kind of policies for them. One is basic social security, providing the basic social security, that is BSS, and another is the contingent social security, that is CSS. And these dual policies, government think, Indian planners have thought that if we try to implement these dual policies simultaneously, then we can cover much of the unorganized laborers. Now, the measures adopted during the planning process, if we focus on that, first and second plans, we have already told that this has been focused on the self-sustainability of the agriculture and heavy industrialization strategies in the second plan. But social security has also been addressed in the first and second plans. But much less attention has been given to the unorganized sectors compared to the organized sector. If we focus on the third plan, we will find that there is a small beginning in case of the social security measures for unorganized sectors, and this has been proposed to assist physically handicapped, old person, women, children. The voluntary welfare organization, self-help groups has been formed, and they were proposed and assist in a small way to unorganized sectors. Now, if we come to the fourth plan, we will find that documented decline among the poorest and destitutes in our country, and that has been highlighted the need of the special assistance. Special assistance in terms of basic social security measures, food security, educational security, this kind of measures has been adopted for the unorganized sectors. And in fifth plan, there is initiation to cover the unorganized labor with protective legislations. Protective legislations means that the legislations previously has been implemented for organized labor. The legislation has been formulated for unorganized sector also since the fifth plan. And sixth and seventh plans basically remain silent regarding the implementations of those social security measures for unorganized sectors. Now, if we focus on the eighth plan, there are various welfare boards, institutions has been formed, set up by the central and the state government to minimize the coverage of unorganized laborers, financed has been given, that has been financed by both the government, central and state government. Cess has been levied, but the conditions of social security for the unorganized sector has not much been improved. And in ninth plan, government thought Indian planners have implemented different kind of basic social security rights for the unorganized sectors, like national social assistance program, the old age pensions, maternity benefits, and family benefits for the girl child. This kind of policies has been implemented for the unorganized sectors, and all those policies has been taken care of within the sphere of poverty alleviation in rural areas. First of all, we will focus on the basic social security measures. This is not only for the unorganized labor or the organized labor. Basic focus is on the rights of the life. And in the first plan, if we look on the chapter 1 of the first plan, we will find that the issues of the social security were addressed as an integral part of the development process. And it has been said in chapter 1 to initiate the process of development which will raise living standard and open out to the people new opportunities for a richer and most varied life. So, after redistributive measures taken like land reforms or Hindu rate of growth, the first major attack on the poverty was began from fourth plan. Indira Gandhi government was there, and they raised the voice. The people, first of all, Indians, first of all, needs the basic rights of the life like roti kapra makan, and they raised the voice for garibi hatao. And this direct attack on the poverty has been implemented through different social security measures. And in the fifth plan proposes the national minimum needs program, including the elementary education, rural health, rural water supply, electrifications, etc. And the sixth plans took few the programs for the direct poverty alleviations like Integrated Rural Development Program, IRDP, Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana, the National Rural Employment Schemes, the Rural Landless Labor Employment Guarantee programs, and many more. But the problems with the Indian planners is that once Sukhomoy Chakraborty was a member of the Indian Planning Commission, once he said that Indian plans are quite good in papers, but they basically always lack the goal adequate trajectories. In the football match, if you can't score goal, you can't win. And Indian planners have thought much about the social security measures, adequately thought, but they has not been adequately implemented. So, the most of the unorganized laborers, they cannot find themselves secure socially through the various government programs. If we try to review those policies, then we will find the percentage of the BPL families has come down to 26% in 2000, but integrated rural development program, only 4.8% of the assisted family can bring themselves above the poverty line, and 29.3% of the IRDP assisted assets cannot generate any income. If we focus on the Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana, the government has credit links of almost 226,000 of self-help group, and 11,970 rupees has been credited through that self-help group. In case of National Minimum Needs Program, that has been lacking in terms of the food security or in terms of the nutritional security for the unorganized laborers. So, there is a shift of the policies for the Indian planners. First of all, they are focusing on food security. If they cannot feed themselves, they cannot work, they cannot produce goods and services. So food security is the major problem. Number two, they need a good health. So health security has been focused. After that, they need a house to stay. So housing security has been addressed. And if they don't have the knowledge to produce goods and services, they cannot enter into the working force. So educational security is a requirement. If we focus on the food security, the Food Corporation of India has been implemented. Public distribution system through the rationing has started since 1960s, and huge subsidy has been rationalized, because if we try to subsidize our working populations in this way, we cannot finance our budget. So PDS has been replaced by targeted PDS, TPDS. And Antodhara Anna Yojana schemes and Annapurna schemes were adopted, and National Family Health Scheme has been adopted, which are focusing on the shortcomings of energy and nutritional benefits. In this way, the midday meal has been implemented. 450 calories and 12 grams of protein were set to disburse among the primary and semi-high school students. Minimum 200 days a year, government will provide the midday meal. ICDS was formed to ensure nutritional security, and in these ICDS schemes, the Anganwadi center has been established. It has been set up that per 1,000 population, at least one Anganwadi workers should work for them under the ICDS programs. For the housing security, Indira Awas Yojana was funded on the cost-sharing basis between center and state in the 3:1 ratio, and Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Missiles has been implemented in 2005, and that has been replaced by Sajal Dhara later on. In case of health security, the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana RSBY has been introduced in 2007, aimed to improve the access of the below poverty line populations. But problem is there is poor coverage of these RSBY schemes, and the reasons behind it, that they don't have adequate access to the paperwork or the reporting requirements. Unorganized labor cannot fulfill those paperworks, and so only 7% of the targeted employees has been covered under RSBY. In case of educational security, the Sarva Shiksha Abhijan has been implemented, and for the free primary education for the children has been brought through the Right to Education Act, and along with that, midday meal program has been provided to attract students to the schools, and various schemes for higher educations also been implemented, like Swami Vivekananda schemes, Junior Research Fellowship, and many more. Now, if we focus on the things how Indian planners have addressed those social security measures, keeping in mind their challenges, then we will find it is not possible for any government, because we have 501 million of working populations just after China. This is the highest one, second highest, and it is not possible for any government to provide adequate social security measures for each and every workers. So this is the basic challenges. And number two, if we try to focus on every employees, then we need enough funds, which we will always lack. So funding is a problem. As we have told earlier, that we don't have adequate and reliable data for the unorganized sectors. So if we don't know where they are working, what are their working conditions, then we will not focus on social security measures. So absence of the reliable data is a problem. The lack of involvement of the people in designing the package of the diverse schemes. They are not focusing on different schemes. They are not targeting themselves to access those schemes, and poorly designed and executed household targeting mechanism. We are focusing on employees, but we are not focusing on the their families, the households, and this is our main problems. And lack of the coordination and overlap in the delivery of the programs reduces accountability of those schemes, various kind of social security delivery. We are lacking the accountability. This is another problem. And this is the basic paradox while implementing the social security measures for organized sector on the one hand, who are much better placed, and the unorganized sectors who are not adequately covered by the various schemes implemented by Indian planners. And the paradox is, if we look at that picture, you will find that unorganized sectors, they are always keeping a safe distance from the government because they are not expecting various social security measures adopted by government to help them. They are keeping a safe distance from that. And next paradox is, if we try to assist the old people through the social security measures, we have to ignore the students, those who will enter after a generation gap, who will enter into the working force. We are not focusing on them. If we try to focus on them, then we have to ignore the old people. And these are the basic paradoxes. If we focus on the insurance, State Insurance Act has been implemented in 1948. After that, so many years has passed out, and if we look at the ratio of the premium to populations, you will find still below the world average and below of almost all of the countries who are competing with China in case of development process like Brazil, Russia, China. India is keeping themselves as low as possible. And what is the call of the hour? Call of the hour is, if we can't secure, if we can't assist our people, then what is the finishing line of the democracy? Government should focus on their people first. And if we go to the quotes of Chanakya in Arthashastra, we will find that Praja Sukhe Sukham Rajya, Praja Nam Ka Hite Hitam, Natma Priyam Hitam Pragya, Praja Nam Tu Priyam Hitam. So, first of all, our main focus should be in the coming years, this should be the call of the hour, that we have to focus on the people first, right to the life. After that, if we try to implement different kind of things, if we try to expect the productivity from our working population, then first of all, we have to secure them socially through much more adequate and viable schemes on the sphere of social security. Thank you.